Autism Fitness founder Eric Chessen, leading the movement for movement, and that movement for movement must include you because I'm just one guy. And in order to bring the best possible fitness and adapted PE programs to the autism and neurodivergent population, it takes more than just one guy in Charlotte, North Carolina. It takes you. So if you are not already an Autism Fitness Certified Pro, head on over to autismfitness.com. You can register today, start your coursework, which is going to be all new in just 1 week, recording the entirety of the level 1 course over so that you get the newest, most up-to-date, most valid or validated information and practices possible. So welcome to Autism Fitness Tuesday training. And we're going a little deep in this one also. So this is something that is definitely part of a bigger conversation about programming for our autism and neurodivergent athletes. We're going to be talking about the SAID principle, and that's SAID. This is something that we find in the realm of exercise science and training, when we're looking at strength and conditioning and skill development from a physical perspective. So right now, if we're looking at it from the PAC profile perspective, the PAC profile being the operating system of autism fitness, that's physical, adaptive, and cognitive. If we're looking at it from the PAC profile perspective, we're not focusing on the adaptive and cognitive right now, even though those are essential and we need to know them, understand them, and be able to effectively implement the concepts and strategies. Right now, we're just focusing on the concept or the physical aspect and under the umbrella of the SAID principle. So what is it? SAID, specific adaptation to imposed demands, meaning that the body is going to respond accordingly to the particular stimulus that it is exposed to or that is being practiced or performed. All right, and this has some broad and then very particular implications, enunciation, for the autism and neurodivergent population. It has specific implications for neurotypical populations as well. It constitutes good programming and effective programming if we follow that guideline. So what does it mean? Well, let's break it down. Specific, particular to a movement or skill or physical quality. Adaptation, meaning the body is doing something in response. Imposed, we're doing it to the body, or the body is doing it to itself, or someone is opting to do it, all three of these things. And demands, well, that's the amount of stress, not bad, the amount of stress that is placed on the body. So the SAID principle means that when we have a particular exercise done at a particular level of challenge for a particular amount of volume, sets and repetitions, or intensity, the amount of challenge that that exercise is, whether that's a additional weight or a progressed variation, the body is going to respond accordingly. And this is immensely important when we are designing our programs for our athletes, because we want enough stimulus with that exercise that something happens. This is why randomized programming, this is why muscle confusion, this is why variety is not a good idea if we actually want some type of reliably measurable and demonstrable outcome from the training that we're doing for our athletes. And much of what I see that goes awry in fitness programming or adapted PE programming for the autism and neurodivergent population, just from my experience and what I see out there, is that there is an over-reliance on variety and novelty, which doesn't actually result in the body getting stronger, getting fitter, motor planning improving, locomotion, and all of these other, and power development, none of these skills are going to be developed even past go if there's not enough stimulus. So, for example, if an athlete does one set of 4 squats to just 90 degrees, what we would call parallel, with practically zero control, which is something that I see, probably you see if you're running autism fitness programs all the time. Is there going to be an immediate training effect? No, there is not. There might be a minute, infinitesimal improvement in low body strength, kind of, sort of, but nothing really measurable. In order to have that outcome, there needs to be a particular amount of physical stimulus, meaning repeated exposure and practice with that exercise over and over and over and over again until the athlete has mastered the movement pattern to a sufficiently independent degree. Right? That's why we have our prompting. That's why we fade our prompting as well. So these things are critical to the improved performance and physical capability of our athletes. When we bring it back to the SAID principle, when we're looking at our basic movement patterns, our pushing, pulling, squatting, carrying, locomotion, and lifting, meaning up off the floor, hinging, we could call it also, then our athletes need the appropriate exercise at the appropriate level of progression or modification, and enough volume, sets and repetitions on a weekly basis with that exercise in order for that training effect to occur. So there's a formula to it, and that formula is exercise times sets and reps is going to equal the outcome. Right? Now, if it were just that simple, which it often is for the neurotypical population, doesn't mean everybody does it right. It just means that it's that simple because we typically have a less in the way of motor planning deficits and strength deficits in the neurotypical population. We have more in the autism and neurodivergent population, so we have to focus on these as well, which might mean, and this is the case for many of my athletes, instead of doing 2 or 3 or 4 sets of a squat or a press or a standing band row, we're doing 4 or 5 or 6 sets. I know I crossed over with the number 4 there because they need enough training volume, exposure, and practice with that exercise in order to culminate in that training effect. That specific adaptation, those first 2 letters in the SAID principle, are going to dictate that the body is only going to respond if there is enough stimulus. If they just do 1 set of squats once a week, is it going to have a training effect? Again, minimal. It is not going to be sufficient over time to result in a training effect. This is also why exercise selection is so important, because we can't just pick random exercises. You can't pick a non-strengthening exercise and expect it to have a strengthening effect. So, for example, and it's going to be specific to that movement quality as well, right? So someone on a stationary bike going for half an hour, are their legs going to get stronger? A little bit, but it's not going to be like stair climbing strength. There's going to be some stamina development, but they're different types of stimuli, very different types of stimuli to the lower body. And this is why exercise selection is so critical. I know I said that already, and such a major part of our autism fitness curriculum, because we need to know what we are implementing and what the expected outcome is going to be for each athlete, and then fill in how much of it they need in order to have that training effect. Now, if we're going to compare this to nutrition, we need X amount of calories total, right, just for homeostasis. And then we look into our macros, our protein, our fats, our carbohydrates, because selecting those appropriately is going to give us the best outcome. So the SAID principle, welcome to it, specific adaptation to impose demands. It governs our training protocols. And if you come across a program that is just using or purporting to put their programming together, oh, it's going to be variety and muscle confusion and a lot of different activities all the time, great. You're missing the entire point and the entire goal of having measurable, demonstrable outcomes in developing strength and motor planning, which is exactly what we're doing. So I hope this has been helpful. I'm Autism Fitness founder Eric Chessen, leading the movement for movement. If you are ready, maybe you're ready now to become an Autism Fitness Level 1 Certified Pro, go to autismfitness.com, click on the certification page, and you can start your journey today or tonight or, I don't know, at 2 a.m., wherever it is. Thanks for watching.